Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 97 of the Rent to Rent Success podcast. And today's episode is all about freedom. We have a phenomenal guest for you this week, and it is Bronwen Vearncombe. And I love Bronwen's story. She's a property investor. She's a #1 best-selling author and coach. And after being told that she wouldn't be able to retire from her corporate job in banking until after the age of 67, she just knew there must be a better way to enjoy more of her life with her family. And in just 2 years, she and her husband replaced significant corporate incomes with property rental, and they left their jobs. Not only that, as you can see from Bronwen's setting, if you are watching this video, they set out to follow their dreams. John circumnavigated the globe in the Clipper round the world yacht race, and Bronwen traveled the world working and volunteering. In 2019, they spent 6 months working, or Bronwen rather, spent 6 months working from the Whitsun Islands in northern Queensland, where she wrote her amazing book, Building Your Dream Life. And that is a definite must read if Bronwen's story resonates with you. And Bronwen's holding it up if you're watching this on our website. She's been featured in national media, and Bronwen loves to share her knowledge to help others achieve the same fantastic freedoms that Bronwen has right now. And thank you so much for joining us, Bronwen Vearncombe.
Pleasure. It's great to be here, Stephanie. As you said, we've got a great story, and sometimes I don't believe it myself, but it really inspires people. And that's why I wrote my book, actually, because I wish I'd known what I know now, 20, 30 years ago. And in fact, I'm coaching people who are sort of in their 20s. And I just think, wow, no one teaches you this stuff. So it's great to be here and to share some of my knowledge.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have you here. Often on, obviously, the Rent to Rent Success podcast, we're talking about rent to rent, which is a time-intensive strategy where you make a lot of cash flow, but you really need to be there, at least for the first part. But we also do like to help people to build up the building blocks of longer-term wealth, and that's certainly what your story is about, and having that more hands-off approach as well. So what I'd love to talk about is, at the beginning, you were met where many people who might be listening to this are. You were still in your 9-to-5 job. You were looking at potential retirement. At the time, it was looking like a minimum of 67. So take us back to that place and how you moved on from there.
Yeah. It honestly, it feels like yesterday. I remember it so well that I was standing on the platform waiting for the train at like 6:30 a.m. And I was honestly thinking, I cannot see myself doing this through my 50s, let alone my 60s. But I was glancing up and down, seeing these older people, thinking that's not going to be me. And so, yeah, I think being a corporate slave, as I see it now, was, I had so many things I wanted to do in my life. Not least, I had an elderly mother at the time. And I thought, my goodness, how do I get time? How do I create more time? I didn't have time in the week. I had 2 children. So, it was all that plate juggling and everything. And I just thought, I'm going to have to keep doing this job until I can get enough pension. But, that catalyst was fantastic for me because it was, well, is there another way? And I think we were looking at our ISAs, and we had a bit of inheritance money from John's mother. And we thought, well, why don't we put it into property? We knew nothing about property. We did a speculative walk down the high street, popped into a couple of estate agents. They sold us a flat, and we thought, and they said, we can rent it tomorrow for you. We're like, is it really that simple? Mm-hmm. And then I went onto Amazon, as you do, and I read a book called Property Magic by Simon Zucci. Now that looked so believable, but also impossible at the same time. I thought, well, I'm sure it works in Birmingham, but I'm not sure about down on the south coast where I'm based, in Hampshire. But, after searching and searching for people to learn with, people that I felt had similar values to me, people who were investors themselves and they weren't just trying to sell me a course, I found a brilliant program of learning. And my husband and I were like, yep, we're determined. Let's see if we can make this happen for us at our age. And, we didn't have much money. So let me start right at the beginning. It's how do you get money to invest in property? Because that's a big myth, massive myth. Oh, you have to be really rich to invest in property.
Yes.
And that's not the case. I mean, you need to know, how can I fund a property? And there are different ways. And of course, rent to rent is one of them. And another one is, where can you find equity in your property, in your home? And that's where we were lucky enough to have got a house that had grown in value. So capital growth, massive opportunity. So that's where we started. That was our seed capital to begin with.
Bronwen, I'm going to highlight a few things, but is there something jingling or jangling near your mic?
I think it might be this end.
Oh, right. Okay.
Shall I put it in my ear? Then it won't. And maybe it's me moving too much, because I do. Yeah,
there's something. It's still going.
Is it?
It's stopped now.
It could be the wind.
It might be the wind. It might be the wind. It's only a minor, but I thought I would mention it just in case it's something fixable. But we can still hear you clearly.
Okay.
It's just a little sound in the background. But a couple of things you mentioned in there that I really wanted to highlight. One is, how do I create time? Because actually, we all think we want to create money, but really we want the money to buy the time. We want the money so that we no longer have to sell our time to our employers. And we can then choose how to spend that time. And because time is our most valuable asset, this is what I love about property investment and what you said. The second thing that you highlighted that I think will affect so many people is, I'm not sure it'll work for me because. So the example you gave was, I'm not sure this will work for me. It might work in Birmingham, but I don't know if it'll work in my location. And people have their own different flavors of that. But you still decided to do it. I want to come to that in a moment. You also came on to the third biggest thing that holds people back from getting started in property. How do I get money if I don't have money to invest? So I'd like to go into both of those. In fact, let's take the money first, and then we'll go in the, I'm not sure it'll work for me. So talk to us a little bit about how you started investing in property without having very much money to start off with.
Yes, this was about looking at our home and saying, was there sufficient equity in the property to take a further advance on our mortgage? Now, I was a banker. I worked in Lloyd's Bank for 21 years. So I absolutely knew that it was possible to take a further advance on my current mortgage. Not only is that one of the cheapest ways to borrow money, but it's using an asset that you've got already, which is one that you happen to live in. So that was our first port of call, and being able to take funds out of that fairly quickly, because we were still working at the time. So you're leveraging the mortgage, the borrowing on your home. So that's the easiest and quickest way to find funds. After that, well, of course, we ran out of money after the first couple of properties, because the deposits on the properties, it eats into your money, and you must always have a buffer as well. So we started very early on to talk to other people, and our big success really in the first couple of years was actually using investor funds. So that's a second pillar of income, of money that we found to be able to use for our investment.
And I really like this idea. I think it's very scary to a lot of people at the very beginning, but some people, even Bronwen, they go straight to investor funds without having ever done something before, on their own, perhaps with money taken out of their property, as you did.
Yeah.
And I would love to know, because there are so many different ways to set up that joint venture arrangement, so it's a win-win for both you and for your investors. And for those very first ones, if you can say just at a high level, did you set them up as an equity partnership, or was it more of a debt arrangement?
Yes, this is really, really important, because it's about trust. It's about getting to know somebody really well. Now, initially, I started off with loan investors. So it wasn't joint ventures. It was finding people who happened to have money either sitting in a business, sitting in a bank account, or stocks and shares even, and giving them the chance to get a better return than they get at the moment. And that could be that it was sitting in a bank, and you would not believe, you may believe, but you would not believe how many people have got money sitting in a current account. Crazy.
Oh yeah.
So borrowing from somebody personally, and offering them an interest rate that suits them. I never offer the interest rate first. I get to know somebody really well. This is what I teach. This is just so important. It's something that I'm really good at. Is finding that win-win. So starting off with loans, because that's easier, quicker, and it's building trust. And then it was when we found bigger deals, or we've perhaps found somebody that said, no, I want to actually learn from you, or I want an equity side of it. I want to go in and maybe put all the funds in, and you do the work and we'll share the profit. So we then went and did a few joint ventures, one with some HMOs initially. All in my book, by the way. All of my examples are in my book in huge amounts of detail. All the numbers are split out. So joint ventures are very different. They're much riskier for both parties. You are sharing the risk when you're doing a joint venture, and it's much more about, you've got to do your due diligence with the person, but it's more like a marriage really than an acquaintance, whereas a loan's more an acquaintance, but with a joint venture, I usually say to people that, never joint venture with someone you're not prepared to invite for dinner, and maybe they'd sleep on the sofa or something, because you know them that well.
Yes, that's a great analogy. Bronwen, I asked you whether you went for debt or equity, and I just thought people might not know what those two different types of JV are. You've explained the debt one, that's just like having a loan. Do you want to just briefly explain what we mean by debt or loans, and what we mean by equity joint ventures?
Yeah, so I always keep things very, very simple. Because I love to help people learn, and everybody's at different stages, and it's you've got to keep it simple. And so leverage. You can leverage debt in different ways. So you can leverage bank debt. So you borrow from a bank on a mortgage basis. That's the mortgage, which a lot of people do. That's fine. But if you're then going to work with private investors, then you've got a loan arrangement with them. That's still debt, but this time it's somebody that you're agreeing and having an arrangement with. Now, I always have documentation in place with my loans, whether it's a family member or my best buddy. I always have documentation. So loans are for a fixed period of time, usually with a fixed interest rate. So, it could be 12 to 18 months. I always overestimate. And we could maybe agree an interest rate of maybe 4 or 5% per annum is the lowest. And if it's a much bigger deal, then it could be higher than that. So just give somebody a range. If it's a joint venture, then a lot more documentation needed, a lot more clarity around what it is you're using the money for. It's usually for a specific deal for me, because it has to be, it has to be, here's the particular arrangement, this is the property, this is what we're going to do with the property, and this is what our exit plans are. And that all needs to be laid out very, very clearly with, different exit strategies, but also the what if. if this happens, what would we be doing? And that reflects your experience. So what I'm doing with a joint venture is I'm bringing my skills of being able to find a deal, a good opportunity to create value. And the other person is usually bringing the money. So they're buying my skills, if you like, and they're benefiting from usually 50% of the profit. If it's say a development, then we share the profit at the end, and there's usually an exit that says, and we sell the flats at the end, and then we share that profit. So there are slightly different arrangements, whether it's an ongoing, like an HMO, where we share the monthly arrangement, or it's a development that has a start and an end. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does.
Okay.
So people can either work with people who are just lending them the money, getting their money back. They're not really involved with the property deal, and you get all the uplift in value of the property. Or you can have a joint venture where you split. You might split the uplift in the property as well as the cash flow.
Yes.
So the other thing that often holds people back is, I'm not sure this will work for me because, or I don't think this will work for me because they get that glimpse of another world where other things are possible for other people. And I know you work with so many people. So tell us about how people, if they're sitting thinking, oh, that sounds a bit like me, I would like to get started with this, but I don't think it would work for me.
Yeah, there's so many common objections. Usually people read the newspapers and believe what they read in the newspapers. And, I don't think that that's a good idea. It's talk to people who are experienced, talk to people who have got knowledge and who are doing this and making it work for them. The most common objection is, I don't have any money. We've covered that one to begin with. The second most common is, well, I read in the Daily Mail that, it doesn't work anymore because the government are taxing landlords and it's not profitable anymore. So that's a common one. And, it's very easy to explain that, tax isn't a bad thing, but if you understand your personal situation with tax, you can overcome sometimes the tax situation. So, for example, Section 24 is what's quoted, and you can't offset your mortgage interest against your profit anymore if you are in a personal landlord buying in personal names. If you buy in a limited company name, then you're paying corporation tax. So it's a different situation. So that you can, if you're a high rate taxpayer, save money by having a limited company. But let me just stop there, because that's the other myth. Everyone says, oh, if I start in property investing, I need to have a limited company. And that is not the case. You don't have to have a limited company. And in fact, I would say for your first purchase of a buy-to-let, it's not a good idea, because interest rates generally are higher if you're not experienced. The first buy-to-let is going to be harder if you're buying in a limited company with no experience. So it's going to take longer and it'll cost you more. So I usually say, well, start simply. Start with just that single buy-to-let to begin with. It doesn't have to be anything big. I bought a 2-bed maisonette in the middle of Winchester, and I've still got it now, and it works really well. So yeah, and then if you're going on to do some, build a larger portfolio, or you're a high rate taxpayer now and you want to make sure you structure things correctly, then you need to speak to a tax expert.
And I'm sure you have lots of people you can put people in touch with. But what's compelling about your particular story is, as we're listening to you, we can hear the wind rustling, we can hear the birds in the background. And you just gave me a little view, didn't you, of your background? If you could just swing your camera around again, Bronwen.
I will do.
If you're watching on the website, you'll see us. Oh, it just looks absolutely stunning. You'll see us at renttorentssuccess.com/97, and you'll see a video of Bronwen there in her stunning setting in Namibia.
Now I'm in Tanzania now.
Oh, you're in Tanzania.
I'm in Zanzibar, And I know my bio said Namibia because I didn't update it for you. So that's my error. So yeah, so quick potted history. We came out to Namibia to volunteer. A big reason why I did property was to find time to do other things. After 6 months in Namibia, we then shipped our car over because of COVID in the UK, decided not to go back. And we've ended up in Zanzibar, and we're based here at the moment, enjoying the stunning Indian Ocean and carrying on our property business here. So we've stopped volunteering, although I do volunteer to clean the beach regularly. So there we go.
Wow. So what a lovely place to live and work. And this is exactly the sort of lifestyle I'll bet you would never have imagined when you were stood on that train station, looking up and down the platform at 6 a.m. thinking, how am I going to do this all through my 50s and 60s? Yeah.
Absolutely not. And, John and I, my husband as well, we both did the course together. And, we started to say, well, look, what else could we do with our time? Certainly, we did not want to manage any of our properties, to replace our time with another job. So we were very clear right from day one that whatever we did, we needed to make sure that it was as passive as possible, and that we were not going to be required to be local, and that we could then travel and do other things with our time. So in a way it was easy because we've never managed any of our properties. But I know people that start off by saying, well, let me manage my first property because then I understand how it works. So it's not a bad thing. But with all our, and we don't have a huge number of properties, I think it's 15 now. We've gone on to different strategies along the way, and it's we've then had to adapt to say, well, how do we step back once we've found the strategy or we've developed the business? How do we then find someone to manage it for us?
Well, I would love, that's actually a good point now to go on to. We talked about when you were very just starting. We've now gone on to your portfolio of 15 properties. But I know some of them are really quite big properties with multiple units. So tell us a little bit about where you are now and paint us a picture.
Well, we started with houses of multiple occupation, so HMOs, because they would give us the highest return so that we could replace our corporate income fairly quickly. So that was our focus and our only focus for 12 months. But as we got better and more knowledgeable and we went through our learning process, we were able to spot opportunities for other things. And it's been certainly around finding motivated sellers and maybe unusual situations. So we found properties that are corner plots, and we thought, great, we can get it, we can maybe extend and create a second dwelling. We did a conversion of a house to 6 flats. That was quite a big project for us in the first 12 months, all with investors, all with joint venture investors for that one. So that came from an estate agent where I would pop in regularly and say, got any unusual properties? And, it's crazy because it works. The agent said to me, well, now you ask me that question, I've just seen this property. I don't know how to value it, word for word. And so I said, well, look, I'm free now. Let's go and have a look. And he took it off the market pretty much straight away because I said, well, this is interesting. I could certainly work something out, and let's have a conversation. That's a great case study, by the way. It's Walnut Grove. So yeah, we converted that property. So on the basis that we were doing HMOs, regular income, and then I suppose you call it, it's a conversion, isn't it? It's a bit like development, but the bricks are there already. You just have to divide the units. So that gave us confidence. It also gave us a really good power team of people that we were working with who were doing the conversion and, getting great advice from people through networking and through our education. So going on from that, we gave up our day jobs. So as soon as, John gave his up within 12 months. I went down to 3 days a week, and then I gave up my job the second year. And then both of us working full-time in property gave us time, even more time, but more education, I suppose, to look at developments and bigger deals. So we never had enough money ourselves. So we were always looking for investors and the next opportunity. So long story short, we looked at commercial property. We bought a house. No, it's not a house. It was a commercial property with 26 bedrooms. It was used by a social enterprise for a bit like a hostel. And we bought that with the idea of converting it to flats. We looked at the numbers. We had JV partners. We were going for planning permission, and we said, while we go for planning, what should we use this property for? We thought, well, it's sui generis planning. We can rent the rooms out on a short-term basis. So that's what we did to begin with. And then we realized that actually that could be very lucrative, a really good return for our investors. And we carried on with that strategy, and we made that our plan A instead of our plan B. And we still have that property now. And we have 5 similar ones. So we rent those rooms out now mainly to council emergency housing. We've tried booking.com, we've tried contractors, all sorts of different things. But, you know, when you start looking at bigger deals, it's amazing what opportunities come your way with knowledge. I hasten to add, you have to have enough knowledge to do really good due diligence. So yeah, we have a trading business now that is short-term accommodation. And we have purchase lease options, we have long leases, and we have bought old bed and breakfasts mainly. That's expanded our strategy because we found that there was quite a high demand. So that's a big part. And then we've gone on to do development, sort of hand in hand, really. You know, opportunities come our way. Sometimes people bring them to us. And if you've got a good investor group at that point, you know that this deal would support that person, and this deal might be of interest to this person. So, you know, it gives you so much more flexibility, and that's the fun bit, I say, the fun bit. Have we frozen? No.
Oh, sorry. I do apologize. I'd put myself on mute, and
no problem.
I was busy talking away to myself. But
Oh, okay.
what I was saying was, you said you had 15 properties, but one single one of those we've just heard had 26 or has 26
yes.
units.
26
so I don't even know if you know the answer, but ballpark across all those 15 properties, how many units do you reckon?
So we've got 94 units in the short-term accommodation.
Wow.
And we have then, so the 15 properties are not including the purchase lease options because we don't own them yet. So the 15 other properties are either the development ones, the HMOs, we have some holiday lets, and we have a single let as well. So that's where we're stopping at that pretty much now. We're expanding on the opportunities like development now to try to get additional funds that we can then pay down some of our mortgage debt. That's the aim. Not easy, but it's possible.
Yeah. So what you're saying there is, rather than acquiring any more to keep and hold for cash flow, you're looking to do developments to sell, to start paying down some of the debt on some of the other properties that you hold. Well, that sounds great. I suppose we are tight for time, and you have so much that we could go into. But let's talk about, I think, something that will be on many people's minds, which is, how do you do it and live abroad? So talk to us through some of the initial steps that you took in order to be able to have the business that you have, where you can have so many units and live abroad.
Well, you know, it's really important to understand your reason why. And whilst obviously family is always going to be up there, I usually say to my clients, you know, think about something that's really specific and personal and something that's really close to your heart. And for me, it was about wildlife conservation. I'd looked at opportunities to volunteer abroad in the past, and I never had enough time. And it was that time thing. So for my husband, his aim was, I want to cross an ocean. I want to sail more. Okay, so it's not on a cruise liner. We're talking about ocean yacht racing. So he looked at the Clipper Round the World yacht race and he went, right, I'm signing up for it. Now that costs quite a lot of money, like £50,000 to go round the world. But what we said there was, set yourself these goals, and then it helps you get motivated to, get through the tough times. So on my phone even today is Nankuse, where I volunteer in Namibia. And for John, it was, the Clipper image. So those images in our head were, when can we do these? At what point will we be free enough, no more deals, free enough to actually be able to do them? And this is a common problem for property investors is, there's always the next deal and the next deal and this opportunity and this shiny penny. So I remember John saying to me, we have to stop, okay? We are stopping that. We're not doing any more new deals, okay? He's signing up to the Clipper yacht race, which was starting in 2017 on a very specific date. And he had to do training and etc. So that was a catalyst really for us, was, okay, here's the date. This is the line in the sand. And it made it easier for us because we knew that at that point he was going to be leaving the UK and he wouldn't be back for 12 months. Okay. Now he was going port to port. He wasn't, it wasn't non-stop. So he was sailing, say, from Liverpool to Uruguay was the first leg. Now I said to him, and he said to me, well, look, you can follow me around the world. Well, that stayed in my head, and I thought, well, what a great opportunity. Maybe I can go around the world as well, but in the comfort of an aeroplane. So, these were real drivers for us. And when I decided that, yes, I was going to try to go around the world without coming home, then maybe there was an opportunity in our house. We could rent our home out and earn an income from that. So that's what we did. And long story short, I recorded a live Facebook video in Uruguay telling my family and friends that here I am in Uruguay and that I was going to follow John to the various 15 stops around the world. And obviously, if it wasn't going to work with the business, I would have come home like a shot. But with that in our minds, we were able to make sure that we had things in place. We had technology in place. It wasn't perfect, but I was working on a laptop. It didn't matter. It was just a time zone thing. So in my head, it was, I'm still working, but I'm going to these amazing places. I think there were a couple of really difficult times because I was doing a new deal. I didn't tell John at the time, but I was doing a new deal, a purchase lease option. And I did need to be available and sign documents. So there were times when it was tricky, but we did it. And we came back a year later thinking, okay, we need to improve things a bit, but we can do this. So it gave us the confidence to think, okay, what are we going to do next? We needed to consolidate for a bit and get some of our trading businesses, a little bit more managed, but it worked. And yeah, we love what we do in property, but we also love spending our time doing other things and having adventures as well. And you can manage the two. We've proved that.
Yeah, because actually you did it very early on into your property, full-time in property. You left for a year quite early on. Yes. And I love the way that you put it. I think that's why people, the people you work with get such incredible results, because it really does speak to you in such a deeper way when you say, right, I'm doing this because I'm going to sail around the world, or I'm doing this because I'm going to volunteer with animal charities. It lifts you in a different way and puts you on a different plane than if somebody says, I'm just doing it for my family, which we all are. But yes. I thank you so much for sharing that story. And you also have some free resources as well to help people. If people have been, if people really warm to this and really can resonate with what you're saying, and they will also would like to have this adventurous lifestyle and do both property and something else. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, well, let me just give the story around, well, when John was planning to go around the world, I was thinking, well, yeah, I'll manage some of the business, but actually I wanted to have my own business to take around the world. And that was in teaching other people and helping other people learn. And the person I was learning with said to me, with his blessing, he thought it was a great idea to have online teaching. And that was my idea. I thought, well, great, I'll teach people on Zoom. And at that point, Zoom wasn't really heard of. No one really knew what Zoom was. So I started to teach people. I was doing it face-to-face before I left the UK. And I loved it. And I thought, this is what I love doing. Yeah, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it because I absolutely get a great buzz from helping other people. And at an affordable price, because we paid a lot for our education. And it was quite scary. But what I've produced is something that's all the essential basics you need to get started at an affordable price. And I make it fun. And then I wrote my book. So we were in Australia for 6 months in the Whitsundays, as you mentioned. We were house sitting as another idea. We rented our house and we house sat someone else's for free. So we made a profit while we were in Australia by living in someone else's home. And that's when I wrote my book. And the book for me was a bit cathartic, really. It was, if I'm going to get this out to more people so that more people can learn this stuff before I did, then I've got to write a book because it's more accessible for people. It's on Audible as well. And I used that time in Australia to say, right, I'm going to be disciplined. I found myself a book coach. I need that because I don't enjoy writing particularly. And you know, that's what I did it took me 4 months and I got it published. And so that's a resource I would recommend. It's called Building Your Dream Life. And if somebody would like to message me on social media and explain why you would benefit from reading my book, I will send a copy in the post in exchange for a review. So yeah, if you want a free book, message me. It's got 15 of my case studies. It talks about why we were successful and why it works for us. All the problems galore, you know, what went wrong and how did we put it right? All the things that you don't normally see in a book. So there we go. So there's the book. And then I've created my online program, and you've got a link to some free training, which is a webinar I created, which blows those myths that I started talking about. There's plenty more myths out there that you could probably talk about for hours. But that webinar will give you the answers. It will give you some case studies, and it hopefully will inspire you to understand what's possible. Okay, so have a watch of that webinar. Give me some feedback, and as I said, it's all free.
Yeah. Well, that's great, and we will put the resources in the show notes at renttoRentSuccess.com/97 for episode 97, and it's bit.ly/free webinar PIF. That is the link to see that free webinar, and also if you would like a free copy of the book, you can contact Bronwen Vearncombe on Facebook or on Instagram. And on Instagram, she is at Bronwen_PIF. And again,
PIF stands for Property Investing Foundation. That is my training business, Property Investing Foundation. So PIF, that's what that stands for.
Yeah. It's the way to build the life of your dreams. So Building Your Dream Life, the book, and you've got the webinar and you've got Bronwen, and you can contact and follow up and find out more, because as you can gather, we've only touched the surface of what Bronwen does and what Bronwen offers. It's so relaxing for me talking to you, Bronwen, because here I am in my home office in Wales, and I'm just looking out to you in Africa with palm trees behind you, and it's just very beautiful and calming and inspiring to be speaking to you about this today. So I want to thank you. As we close, Bronwen, though, is there anything that I haven't asked you or that you'd have loved to have said that you'd like to leave people with?
Indeed. Not everybody wants to do what we've done. And indeed, you know, it's been a tough time early days. You don't need to do as much as we've done. And the one thing I do want people to think about is, if you think, oh my goodness, I've got to replace all this corporate money, we didn't need to live on as much as we were earning. Yeah. So do some sums, work out what you actually need to live on. You'll be surprised. So yeah, keep it simple. This is what it's all about. Get starting, think about different strategies, and yeah, come and learn from the experts.
Yes, absolutely. Because exactly what you've said there, people may not think of, people may struggle unnecessarily, but you've already been through all those. You've already hit your head against those brick walls, and you're now showing people the way. But if I could recap on some of the things that we've talked about today, Bronwen asked earlier on, how do I create time? And I think that's a question that we all want to answer, so that we can really spend it consciously. And that is how we spend our time is how we live the life of our dreams. So that's number one. And the number two thing in which Bronwen is very expert, and which will help you enormously in your property career, is how do you get the money to invest and create those win-win scenarios for the people who you work with. So it's a very compelling tale. So thank you so much, Bronwen, for coming on and sharing your story. Thank you to you for watching and for listening today. And do follow up with Bronwen either by messaging her to get her free book, Building Your Dream Life, or click the link to watch the free webinar, which I know you're going to enjoy as well. So thank you. That's all for now. I will see you all again next week. And remember, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer. Bye for now.
Bye.